Hi everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And this time around we're less reviewing a single car as a fleet of cars, because you may well notice that we now have the sharing economy all around us, and cars are no different. Think Zipcar, Turo, and of course Car2Go. This company started out back in 2009 as a pilot project in Austin, Texas, and it has exploded since, now with almost 14,000 cars in 26 cities around the world. Now here in Calgary, it really has changed the vehicle landscape and changed how a lot of us commute as well. But up until recently, it hasn't been really much of an option for more than one or maybe two people, because the smart car, the two-seater, was the only car in the company's lineup. Well, Daimler owns Car2Go. They also happen to own Mercedes-Benz, and the company has added a couple of other options to their lineup which kind of shuffle the deck on us a bit. The GLA, which is this compact crossover, as well as the CLA sedan. And these options are available to you now in every Canadian city where Car2Go is offered. In fact, it was just announced that in Denver, Seattle, Austin, and Portland that they're going to be phasing out their smart cars altogether in favor for these Mercedes-Benz vehicles. So I'm going to spend the next weeks in full Car2Go dad mode to see if we can make it work for our family. So stick around. It's the Car2Go experiment this week on Family Wheels. So here's the general gist with Car2Go. You pay a $5 startup fee, and then you download a special Car2Go app to your phone, and then you have access to every single one of those Car2Go vehicles in every single city that they're available, which is cool because it means that not only do you have access to the Car2Gos that are in your home city, but also if you go traveling, it's a nice alternative to being in a taxi all the time or using the subway. Now the thing with Car2Go is that beyond that initial $5 fee, there is no monthly fee attached to this service. You're only charged for the time that you actually spend driving this car. So you could go months without using a Car2Go and then all of a sudden need one, and you're only charged for that time specifically. And when the time does come for you to use a Car2Go, you open the app, track down a car in your area, reserve it for a half-hour window so that no one else can drive away with that car while you're walking to it, and then you just make your way to it. Once you're there, you unlock the car with your phone, you grab the key from its special placeholder either on the dash or in the glove box, and you're off. And then just like a cab, you're charged based on the amount of time that you're in the vehicle, not by the number of kilometers driven. So if you're stuck in a traffic jam or you have a lot of stoplights along your route, your bill is still climbing even when you're at a standstill. Once you get to your location, you put the key back in its spot, get out, and the door is locked behind you. So it's a super easy, very streamlined, very user-friendly kind of system. And with Car2Go, your insurance, your gas, your maintenance, even parking costs are covered off as part of your driving fee. One other thing that's handy here in Calgary anyway is that you can actually leave a Car2Go at the airport too, so you don't have to pay those expensive long-term parking fees anymore either. That's another handy feature about these vehicles. Now there are contingencies in place if you do have to fuel up mid-trip. You can get access to a Car2Go credit card, but I've actually never had to do it, and cars almost always are really clean thanks to this staff of people who monitor the fleet, keep them fueled up, and in actually really excellent condition. Although there have been times where I've gotten into a Car2Go early in the morning to get to work, and there's that thick, undeniable smell of fast food burgers and boozy breath, and you just know that somebody has used this car the night before as a designated driver. But other than that stinky smell occasionally, the fleet is really nicely managed. Now, if you just really like the act of driving, the smart car is one of the most uninspired, honestly kind of awful vehicles that I've ever driven. Now, to be fair, the latest generation of smart cars, which is starting to phase out the older Car2Go vehicles, has gotten slightly better, but the transmission is just unforgivably choppy. It's noisy, they're really bad in the snow, and have some heinous blind spots to contend with. But for the urban environment, you could pretty much park one of those things anywhere, and they have a turning radius that you could practically do donuts around a manhole cover with. So they really are excellent for just getting around the city. However, if you do have more stuff to haul, if you've got car seats that you need to put in the back seat, if you've got snow to contend with, or you just rather have something a bit more pleasant to drive, the CLA sedan and GLA crossovers are pretty damn skookum really for a car share program. Leather, heated seats, navigation, all-wheel drive, a panorama sunroof, and a very sporty ride all await you in either of these choices. But of course, for all those features and this additional luxury, you are going to pay a little bit more for the Mercedes, although not that much, to be honest. At the time of broadcast here, the smart car in Canada costs 41 cents per minute to drive, and the Mercedes vehicles are only 47 cents per minute. So it's not that much of a difference, and you do get a lot more car for your money at that point. But no matter which Car2Go you're driving, quite honestly, the costs do climb on you fairly quickly. A 15-kilometer trip across the city at non-peak times, for example, has been averaging me about 15 bucks. And there is a boundary that you can't finish your trip outside of. So for example, the other day I got into a Car2Go right near my house. I live within the Car2Go boundary, and then I drove outside of the boundary to go to my accordion lesson. And yes, I do play the accordion. Leave the comments below if you feel so inclined. But even as I was sitting there learning my latest tune with my instructor, I was still getting charged for the car sitting there outside of the boundary. And it wasn't until I went to go pick up my son from preschool, drive it back home, and put it back into the rental pool that I was no longer being charged for that vehicle. And the cost came out to 67 bucks, which is pretty steep. Now at that point, I was actually getting pretty close to the cap, the most that you can spend on a Car2Go in a given day, which is 79 bucks for one of the Mercedes vehicles. At that point, you've got access to that car for a full 24 hours. You don't have to put it back into the pool. Now, a lot of Calgarians actually take advantage of this and take Car2Go vehicles out into the mountains for the day, take them to go skiing or hiking or whatever, and then they've got complete access to it for that 24-hour period. But my wife and I did this the other day, thinking we'd max it out at 79 bucks, be able to use Car2Go fuel, thought it would be a great way to get out into the hills. The thing is that once you go beyond 200 kilometers, you actually start to rack up additional costs for every kilometer driven. So I got back into the city, and the app alerted me that in fact that trip had cost me a pretty expensive $116. At that point, it's far better to just go and spend your money on a rental vehicle from Budget or Avis or one of the more conventional car rental companies, because it gets pretty expensive if you're putting lots of miles onto a car driving out into the mountains for the day. Now there is one other serious chink in the armor when it comes to Car2Go, and I think this is its biggest flaw, and that is finding a vehicle. It seems like Car2Gos are everywhere until you actually really need one. You see, an interesting phenomenon has occurred here in Calgary. Parking downtown in this city is among the most expensive in the world, and since street-level parking is free for Car2Go drivers, commuters are using these cars to avoid paying hefty parking fees during their workday. And that means that after the morning commute, pretty much every Car2Go in Calgary has made its way right into the downtown core. So if you need a Car2Go somewhere outside of the downtown, it can be like trying to find a three-legged unicorn. So there have been some tense moments for me over the last month, schlepping Roger's car seat around, looking at the app, trying to find a car. I've got a deadline. I got to go meet Roger at his preschool at 2:30. It can be really stressful. And that means that for a lot of Car2Go users who I've spoken with, they've actually wound up using Uber far more than they expected because a car is just not there when they really need it. Now, one of the solutions that I've come up with over the last month is kind of a hybrid bike commute slash car sharing program kind of deal, where I look at the app, find a car that's say 2 or 3 kilometers away, I bike to that vehicle, and then I take it apart and I put it in the trunk. But at that point, you pretty much have to be in one of these crossover style Mercedes just to have room for your bicycle. But of course, the ultimate vision in the car sharing world is autonomous vehicles, where the vehicles can spread out as needed automatically, so they don't just centralize right in the core. And when you do need one, the car will come to you rather than having to bike to it or run to it or track one down. And we're moving much more quickly toward that futuristic style of commuting than many people expected, at which point many futurists predict we just won't own cars anymore at all. But in the meantime, car sharing can be a stressful option. Unless you have a very urban, very centralized, very pedestrian-focused life, I'll be honest, for family living, Car2Go can be a little bit tense at times with deadlines that you really have to meet to pick up kids, to get to work on time. But you know, it's interesting, while each of those $15 trips that I've been taking all through the last month all kind of had a bit of a sting, like it was a lot of money in the moment, it actually, when you do the math and add everything up, is a pretty cheap way of having access to a fleet of vehicles. Like when we factor in gasoline and maintenance and lease costs and parking and all of that, it's pretty reasonable. I have spent this month right around $450, and that's quite a bit less than you would spend on your own car, and you don't have to factor in things like a depreciating value and all that sort of thing, and you are driving around in some pretty nice Car2Go Mercedes vehicles most of the time too. And while I do really like the direction that we're heading in, and I think that car sharing in all likelihood is the future of the automotive industry, for now, if only strictly for convenience, I think we're going to be holding on pretty tight to our Volvo keys. But I'd like to know if you're a family who's been able to make a go of using Car2Go. Leave us your tips and tricks. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time around in a more conventional review right here on Family Wheels.